So on a stream last week, I was coloring this piece by Rebecca Isaacs, which will be used in some other tutorials coming up soon. And this is a work in progress; it's not finished yet. But I was working on this piece, and I got a question from someone on stream that I thought was a good question, and I thought it was worthy of an answer here. And they wanted to know how I was able to use one shadow color, or effectively one shadow color, for all the shadows on this piece. I mean, there's some that are slightly different, but basically every shadow on the skin of the characters right now and most of the background is all kind of just this warm, kind of orangey brown color. And this particular user just couldn't quite understand how I was able to use one color for shadows on things that have many colors. Like, how does that work? And so I want to talk about that in this video. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Kurt. I'm a comic book colorist. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I was outside playing basketball shortly after the stream that day, which is kind of like my afternoon meditation. And I noticed this shadow on the ground, and I thought that I could use this to actually answer that guy's question. So the first thing I want to start off with is to compare the colors that we're actually looking at to each other and see what the relationships are like between each other. If I try to color pick from a photo, or if you try to color pick from a photo in Photoshop, or eyedropper. I don't ever call it eyedropper. I call it the color picker. Anyway, the eyedropper. By default, it is, I believe, set to point sample. I think that's the default setting. And what that does, I'll make a new layer here. What that does is pixel to pixel, it changes, okay? Especially with something like this gravel, there's all sorts of different colors. So you can see, like, even in this one little area, you can see the color picker over there in the right corner just kind of going nuts all over the place. I mean, they're all kind of in the same general area, but it's tough, going pixel by pixel to be able to get a good average. So what you can do is click on the eyedropper, and I'm going to set this to like 31 by 31. Now what that's going to do, and I'm going to hold Alt here to pull up the eyedropper. See how it smooths out the changes? Because it's taking an average of a 30 by 30, I don't know, square, circle, I don't even know. But it's taken that average of this area. And that way you get much smoother transitions, and we can see that, somewhere around right here, and I'll put this color down, that's about the average color of this area. And if we back up and try that again, you can kind of see that this kind of blends in pretty well with that shadow. And so I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to do the same thing on this gravel here, and we'll color that in. I'm going to do the same thing on the grass, and the same thing on the grass shadow. Okay, so we've got this color for the driveway, this color for the grass in the sun, and then we have the color of the shadow concrete and the color of the shadow on the grass. Okay, I want to try to find a color in multiply mode or in hard light mode, either one of those modes work fine, that will duplicate this effect with one color. Now, why does this work at all? Like, why can I go in and find one color that I can use to automatically kind of find these shadow colors? The first thing to understand is what gives a shadow its color, okay? And this is something that's gotten discussed a lot in all kinds of different videos, and different tutorials have, different ideas about this. But as far as what's realistic, think about it this way. Our primary light source is the sun, okay? A shadow is not a physical thing, okay? Like, it's a lack of a thing. It's just a lack of light, okay? If our direct light is hitting here from the sun, and it's not hitting here, what light is hitting here, okay? I've talked about this in videos in the past. I'll link them in the description. But it's the sky, okay? It's a sunny day. The sky itself is a light source. It's just a big light source, okay? It's not as bright as the sun, but it's still a light source. And on a sunny day, on planet Earth, it's blue, okay? So on a sunny day, clear of obstructions from anything else, your shadows on the ground from the sun are going to lean blue. If it's a blue sky and the sun is out, you're going to get cool shadows. You're going to get bluish shadows, okay? This is where a lot of artists, and myself included, use blending modes like multiply or hard light to imitate this effect, basically, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer above this, and I'm going to set it to multiply. I'm going to select half of these little dots here in the sun so we can put shadows on. Now I'm going to take a guess. on this first. And I did set this up earlier, so I've got a pretty good idea about what color works. But let's say I don't know exactly, and all I know is the sky is blue and it's bright and it's about right here. Okay, let's just say. So I go to my multiply layer, and I'm just going to fill this with that color. Now, that's pretty close to the shadow for the grass, but it's not really the right color for the shadow for the concrete. Now, all you can do with this, now I've got a keyboard shortcut. I'd have to look at it. Mine said to Control H. I think you can set it to whatever you want, of course. But I think it's Control U by default. Will open up the hue saturation slider. So I'm on this multiply layer where this shadow. The only thing on this layer is the shadow, right? So I'm going to use these sliders to try to kind of massage this color into something that seems to fit both of these. Okay. I'm going to shove it a little bit toward green. Okay, I'm looking here right now at trying to get this one in line because it's the one that is most different from real life. So I turned it a little bit toward more of a teal from where it was, and I'm going to darken it a little bit. And that is pretty darn close, okay? All right, so real quick recap. This color is what I chose, as an average from the real life color. This is a multiply layer on top of that average light color. Same thing here. So this is real. This is the multiply mode. And now if I go and look at that actual color to see what it is, there you go. Like it's basically like a middle tone sky blue color. Like that's pretty much what color the sky is. Now what multiply is doing here is, and the math is probably more complicated in this, all that I care about is multiply always darkens. You never have to worry about it lightening anything. It's always going to darken, and it's going to mix your underlying color with whatever color you choose. So multiply is going to darken, and it's going to shift your base color toward whatever color you chose. Okay. So this is how on like a piece like this, for example, if we look at the shadows on this, and this is a work in progress. I'm going to make that clear. This is not finished, but all of these shadows are very warm. So I know what some of you guys are thinking already, right? Like I just said, when the sun's out, that the shadows are cool. Yes, sometimes. But in this specific case, we have the sun, but what do we have below him? We have sand, okay? Now I live a mile off the beach. I spend a lot of time on the sand. Sand's very reflective, okay? And so what you get is the sun, which is on the warm side, hitting the ground and then bouncing up. And so all of these shadows, now, and the light is kind of top down on this. I kind of meant it to come from the top. And so most of these shadows are actually facing down, okay? Not all of them, but most of them. The reason they're warm is because the sand is warm. And so it's warm light coming down, reflecting off the sand, getting even warmer. And that's how you end up with really warm scenes, on beaches, because the light is reflecting off the ground, and in this case, it's reflecting off skin and sand and all this stuff that's already warm. And so it's going to vary, of course, depending on what you're working on. There's no like magical trick that's going to work in every scenario. You might have also noticed here that this is actually a hard light layer. Now, hard light, if you are below 50% gray, which is basically the halfway point across the color picker, if you're below that line with a color, hard light acts like multiply mode. If you're above the 50% line, it acts like screen, if I'm not mistaken. So it's effectively the same thing as multiply. Now, of course, this is an oversimplification, or not an oversimplification. It's a simplification. Like all art is a simplification. But something else to keep in mind, because I want to make sure you guys don't jump in with this with both feet and think that this is going to apply at every single scenario. Remember that shadows are going to be lit by the color of the light that's hitting the shadow. I know that might seem really obvious, but when I put it that way, but that's what's happening. And that includes all light, including like reflected light. Like, so I took this also the same day, leg reveal, by the way, on my channel right here. So, and my camera focused on the grass here, of course, which is perfect. But anyway, I thought this was a really good example of how much reflected light can affect shadow color. I want to show you how even on a sunny day without sand, you can still have shadows that aren't cool. Depends on which direction they're facing, okay? So in this case, so like if you go look at my arm here, going from the light side to the dark side. All right, so looking at the color picker, it didn't really shift very cool there. Why not? The grass did, the concrete did. Why isn't the arm? Look at which way it's facing. Okay, it's not facing the sky. Okay, my arm is actually, it's kind of hard to see at this angle, but it's not facing the sky. So the only light that it's getting is being reflected off of the ground, off of me, off of my shorts, off of my skin here. And I want you to notice the difference in the shadow right here and the shadow right here. Can you see how it starts dark and then it gets progressively lighter? And you can even see the color picker kind of sliding up slightly. It's getting brighter as we go down. Okay, so we're starting dark and then it gets bright. Why? This is reflecting off my skin. Like, skin is very reflective. And so the light is coming down, it's hitting my skin and bouncing up into this area. But on this side, this is just my shorts, and this fabric is not that reflective. So that's why you're not getting as much light in this part of the shadow. Here it's bouncing, and it's just not a strong enough reflection to really show up here. But my white legs, yes, plenty bright enough to reflect onto this shadow part here. So that's something else that's going to, dictate the color of your shadows is what light is hitting that area, what reflected light is hitting that area. Is there some light bouncing into that area? Like a shadow is just the collective average of all the light hitting it, And if you have a lot of different colors hitting it, like it just tends to move more toward white or gray just because, when light blends, it tends to move more and more toward white. So to show you guys how I would actually put this into practice, like on a really simple drawing, it's like I put this together real quick. It's just, there's not even any lines. It's just shapes. But so I've got a multiply layer on top of this, and I've also have this clipped to the layer below, so I can't color outside of these lines. But let's say this is the guide I'm coloring in my book or whatever. And how you're actually making the shadow, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to draw a quick shape like that. And just, I'm going to fill it with a color. It doesn't matter what the color is at this point. And so if I was in a place where the light was coming from, the left front like it is here, and there were a lot of warm things behind me, or if I was standing in front of a barn or something, like that reflected light or that light that's filling the shadow is going to change this color. It's going to affect the color of this. And if you do like me and you do your shadows on a separate layer, the thing that makes this cool is, again, open up your hue saturation, what is it, image adjustment, hue saturation, or with a keyboard shortcut, and play around with your just the hue of your shadow. You can and play around with how saturated it is, how desaturated it is. It's like where, and it's a way to sort of kind of dial in the color you want. So once you get a shadow color that looks decent and works for you, that can be your starting point. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go down to my flats or my base colors and just select the thing that I want to shift the color of the shadow of. It's like if I want to make the shadow a little more saturated on his skin, then I can turn it up on his skin, or I can turn it down on his skin, or whatever, whatever I think looks right. What I would recommend though is, take some pictures like this. And it can be tough to find nice pure examples of this. It's easily in the sun, and it's like the sun and a big shadow, and that's it. But around your house, you have lights bouncing all over the place, and there's so it's not always going to be this clear cut. Keep that in mind. Anyway, quick weird lesson. I don't know, I've got some more tutorials I'm working on, but I thought I'd throw this together real quick. So thank you so much for watching. Go to the description, click stuff, click things around, and I'll see you guys in the next video.